Good morning, afternoon or evening, and welcome to Who Beats Who. Now this may sound like a game show, but sadly it's not. It is in fact the latest in the marginal gain series of my 0AD tip videos. It's basically for those people who frequently see their cavalry massacred, their archers decimated, or their siege engines crippled and just want this state of affairs to change. If that sounds like you, watch on. So before we get on to which units counter which, let's have an overview of the basic troop types. To make this a bit easier, we'll first split them into two categories, infantry and cavalry. First up is infantry. Now these can be split into melee and range troops. Melee being spearmen and pikemen and swordsmen, and range are skirmishers, slingers and archers. Now melee troops are more heavily armoured and they have 100 health rather than 50, but they're less agile and slower because of this. Now, as I just mentioned, range troops only have a health of 50, but they can attack from distance. However, due to their lower health and armour, don't get them in a close quarter battle with melee infantry because they'll lose. It's also worth bearing in mind that as the distance that range units can attack increases, the damage that they inflict on their opponent decreases. This means that skirmishers cause the most damage and archers the least. And so on to cavalry. These are camels or horses, and there are three basic types available: skirmishers, archers and spear. Now there are also sword cavalry available, but not of phase 1, so we're going to look at these a little bit later on. Anyway, as with infantry, melee cavalry have greater health than their range equivalents. This is 160 versus 100, although unlike the infantry, the melee cavalry are actually faster than the range cavalry. That said, the armour is still better for the melee soldiers when compared to the range. Now before we look at who beats who, consider there's more than one way to skin a cat. Therefore, relying on a single tactic with your troops may well get you some quick wins, but you're always going to be found out longer term. Because of this, I want to offer some general advice and strategies, and only after looking at those are we going to follow up with counters to some of the more specific common threats. Now the biggest single piece of advice I can give is not to rely on a single type of soldier. You should always try and attack with a mixture of melee troops supported by range troops. This way your melee troops that have higher health will take most of the hits by being out in front, while the range troops support from distance to help take down your opponent. As I've said before, with range troops it's a trade-off between distance and attack rating, but for melee troops it's a bit more like rock, paper, scissors, and it goes like this. Now our three groups of melee troops are spearmen, cavalry and swordsmen. And I think, to be honest, we should have a drum roll please. So spearmen would beat cavalry, and cavalry will beat swordsmen, and swordsmen will beat spearmen. And it really is that simple. So now let's have a look at a few scenarios that you'll probably recognise, and let's see how best to win them. The first scenario we're going to look at is a cavalry rush. Now, as we've already established, the best troops to use against cavalry attacks are spear soldiers, be they infantry or cavalry. However, if you're facing a Ptolemy camel archer attack, then you're really going to need the cavalry, as the spearmen infantry are too slow to cover the extra range the archers have. Now, if this option is not available to your faction, then your best bet is a combination of spears and range troops if you're going to mount a successful defence. Another attack that people frequently fall foul of is a mass of elephants. Now when they come steaming in, your best method of defending yourself is a large number of range troops, specifically skirmishers. A large number of skirmishers will take an elephant down in no time, whereas trying to use melee troops is going to see the elephant destroy many buildings before you finally get rid of this menace. And the final scenario we're going to look at is siege weapons, because these can be an absolute nightmare to defend against, especially rams, if you don't counter with the right troops that is. Importantly, always remember that range troops are pretty much useless against them. The best defenders against rams and catapults are sword cavalry, but these aren't available to all factions. Because of this, a good second best is either rams of your own or elephants. You should have access to at least one of those. Now an elephant can actually take out a ram or a catapult in about 2 hits. So if you have elephants, then leaving a couple by your civic centre means that you can defend against those sneaky ram attacks that sometimes people use. And with that, we come to the end of another Marginal Gains video. Thank you for watching. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments, like if you liked, subscribe if you like doing that sort of thing as well. And I will see you in the next video.